Chaos is uncontrolled. There are some truths that are so obvious that many presume that others are aware and allow it, leading to contradictory behaviors with institutional or individual values. When someone does discover what everyone ought to know, most are either surprised or dismissive. Thus, people at some point imagine theft knowing everything yet are blind to one of the most core principles of nature, segregating major hindrances to societal growth. Even the most surface-level observation shows that it is outright nonsense to expect someone who just recently joined the anti-condo community to construct a solid counter against a con member who deludes themselves into believing they do no harm to others. Only someone competent in the anti-condo community's values can propagate those same values. Similarly, the completely indoctrinated con member can and will try to enforce their compulsive impulses, especially towards those without detailed knowledge regarding the condo community. Dual influences from the anti-condo and condo communities, if encountered early, are problematic. The influenced individual will likely retain some sense of humanity and remain stronger than the con member, but it will be much more difficult for them to prioritize this strength's growth like the anti-condo community. Consequently, they will choose one side if they become persistent enough. The precondition for societal progress is not associating our collective humanity, but in propagating the values necessary to humanity's dominance over the natural world. Impulses and the desire for comfort are part of this natural world, and are unworthy of any sacrifice. Only the naive would consider this inhuman, though their statement is limited in that if these were not to be overcome, any conceivable higher development would be unthinkable. The consequence of natural variation in logical adherence is a similar variation in uniform character. The compulsive liar is compulsive, the manipulative partner is manipulative, the naive optimist is naive, etc., with the difference lying in the developed characteristics and experiences. However, you will never find a manipulative partner who shows selfless care towards the naive optimist, as similarly there is no con member with a friendly inclination towards children or adolescents. This is what makes it so difficult, though no less important, to assist people with their internal struggle between strength and impulse. If we do not propagate the healthiest of minds and willpowers, many will succumb against the con member's influence. While struggle propagates development through improving intellectual health and resilience, its tests are controlled to prevent any genuine descent into the impulse and slothfulness of con members. Chaos is inherent in all compounded things. Strive on with diligence. Foresight is vision. Should the progression of humanity no longer revolve around intellectual strength, all further development would cease. Since the untrained outnumber the contributors, when both are given the same possibility of propagation, the inferior would multiply to the point where true value would be diluted, unless a correction in public culture aligns with community intellectual strength over the individual. This is normally avoided by eliminating the presence of environmental determinants, while simultaneously reinforcing education to minimize the appeals of any illegal markets. Historical experience illustrates the consequences of removal without cultural, rather than solely physical, reinforcement. The 1920s-30s alcohol prohibition in the USA demonstrates the fickleness and innate weakness of the public, leading to a major rise in crime and illegal trade. In contrast, the Chinese Communist Party were able to maintain cultural consistency despite the rise of the Internet, through the 1998 Great Firewall, filtering out any detrimental material to their societal stability. Unlike prohibition, This was faced with minimal opposition or crime rate increase even today. Through these examples, we can clearly recognize the significance of cultural and environmental factors to an individual or community's intellectual strength, to both amplifying or hindering effects. The result of the condo industry's preservation demonstrates a modern example of restriction without cultural emphasis. Despite directly opposing ethical values and roadblocks community standards, the platform's capitalistic approach, combined with a culture of creation freedom, results in con members often exploiting others' impulses or indifference to promote the condo community. Based on the patterns of prohibition, there are two widespread effects. 1. Shifting the values of witnesses from growth to profit-centered selfishness or sabotage. 2. Physical and intellectual regression in favor of impulse and comfort. Yet this development is rewarded, despite its discouragement by traditional values. When one tries to attain independent thinking, they often develop a reliance on anything that opposes their earliest teachings or aligns with their innate weaknesses. This is how the number of con members continues to grow, as underwhelmingly illogical as the process is. What differentiates humans from animals is not embracing nature, but overcoming it. Countless individuals in the public, anti-condo, or condo communities thoughtlessly repeat the nonsense of blind righteousness or autonomy, without recognizing why they are promoted in the first place. They consider this belief not as a developed idea, but as a weapon. One that I see as ill-suited against the polluted impulses that drive the con member away from any value or beliefs of humanity. Vision is the act of seeing what is invisible to others. Discussion is loud. With the digital age comes the age of knowledge, to discover everything, but overcome little. Though theories may allow someone to surpass those without the same understanding, these theories always originated from human development. Universal themes such as freedom, order, justice, or even discipline cannot be comprehended without human thinking. Beyond even that, certain ideas are associated with the experiences of certain individuals, in worlds of mathematics, literature, history, science, and more. It is precisely because of this where the sense of disbelief and futility steps in. Everyone desires significance, but few would have the determination to fight for that significance with every experience or skill set at their disposal. Many resign themselves to disbelieving they can contribute to the anti-condo community or otherwise, or believe any efforts to accomplish this would be futile. Unfortunately, this way of thinking contrasts growth and rationality. Does this not resemble the con member? The being that subconsciously perceives impulse as happiness so strongly that they become permanently reliant on degeneracy? The being that joins the condo community out of dissatisfaction with the physical world, choosing to escape without addressing this themselves? No opportunity is donated, all of it is created. Even the witness required 89 days on the first draft alone, a major commitment despite the demanding environment of university. Regardless, I persevered, covering every relevant idea of mine with the intention of the anti-condo communities, as well as the public's intellectual development. From the topic alone, efforts of this magnitude may warrant ridicule, but the condo community has remained a problem throughout the entire digital world and demonstrated influence in the physical world. Everything we can admire in today's world, regardless of educational field, is never the outcome of idle theorizing or blind adherence to trending information. A message techniques must be well thought out, and when presented, it must do so with significance. Awareness motivates those pursuing knowledge to the highest achievements, though in those who value excitement or community it means little. The inner nature of people always determines which outward influences will be more effective. Hence, to preserve a culture of intellectual strength must fully utilize the appeal of strength, while aligning it with the necessary universal values of order and overcoming impulse. Those who want to live optimally should be given the opportunity to do so. Those who avoid necessary struggles will be caught up in them and unprepared. Even if this were difficult, so is everything that has yet to be accomplished. Those who misjudge and disregard the impact of the con member weaken their own understanding of the corruption they oppose. The same goes for those who harbor the anti-condo beliefs, without outwardly informing themselves and others. If one isn't verbally reinforcing their values, those values will succumb to the con member's influence. The anti-condo community's goal isn't to establish places of power, but to set a foundation and grow this community, as well as societal attitudes and values, in a positive manner. The most powerful relationship you'll ever have is the one with yourself. Discouragement is humbling. The question of an anti-condo group's purpose monitors the extent that natural instinct is integrated compared to consistent expression of its objectives. The will to contribute, subjectively viewed, is common, yet various in its method of expression. The most basic form of expressing contributions is establishing one's ego. The innate desire to build confidence off of others is a universal concept, prompting countless people to live and act only for themselves, disregarding their environment and resources. As long as this instinct expresses itself, those possessing it lack basic group compatibility, let alone one as logically demanding as the anti-condo community. Even individual friendships demand extensions beyond ego alone, since concerns and struggles are now divided between more than one person. Just as I experience my failures in the ODH and U phase, only when this ego is first discouraged, exposed to the difficulties of the real world, can the basis of true intellectual strength be formed. Among the con members, this quality's underdevelopment is severe enough to where some attach their ego onto achieving their false freedom and enjoyment. Even the con leaders or developers demonstrate this delusive sense of pride from manipulating their audience, with one even expecting roadblocks to allow condo games to remain on the platform where the primary player base are minors. The greater the selfish ego's indulgence in personal interests, the higher their incapability to comprehend the impact of their own downfall. In contrast, the selfless distancing from personal interests is most characteristic, most developed, in the anti-condo user. Regardless of any mental qualities, the strength of willpower in service to the public elevates their own intellectual strength and understanding of it. In them, the ego is more foundational against discouragement, more universally valuable, more applicable to achievements in any age of society. Intellectual strength does not draw from innate intelligence alone. If that were the case, the user can only act destructively rather than productively. The inner values of strength require the willpower not just to maintain consistency with intellectual growth, but to be willing to sacrifice anything personally hindering this. Only through this way can discouragement be not solely overcome, but transformed into a productive resource. Even after my aforementioned losses in leading the ODH or reinforcing U-face consistency, my activity still aligns more with the condo industry's elimination rather than U-face preservation. Even without a morally centered motive, my works are not solely for my own advantage, but the advantage of widespread intellectual strength. In working with the anti-Kondo community, I do not see success in activity primarily serving to keep a group alive. I see success in creative or innovative efforts that progress against the proliferation of con members. If the objective yields negative or neutral results, an action would align too much with personal factors, serving preference over success. This state of mind, capable of placing community strength over the ego's interests, is the first premise for any culture, drawing from ethnicity, ideology, or otherwise. From this alone can rise all the great works of mankind, which develop the individual as well as collective progression. We can understand how the notable are able to give the community the foundations of their existence, regardless of wealth or poverty. Every worker, inventor, author, politician, etc., who works without prioritizing immediate happiness or prosperity for themselves, is representative of this high development. What applies to work as the foundation of human progress is true even to human culture. In reinforcing the successful one's values among intellectual strength, the community's existence grows overall resilience against discouragement, including from the innate competition for personal significance. This alone will prevent what our predecessors have built from being overthrown by animalistic impulse. Aside from growth, consistency, and rationality, intellectual strength also involves applying this knowledge in service to human benefit, outside of impulse or comfort. What distinguishes it from selflessness is that it inherently rejects naivety and preferential actions. In this, intellectual strength represents the subordination of interests and personalization to a wider purpose and field of knowledge, preconditioning the reasons for humanity's level of control over the world. The sheer difficulty of maintaining intellectual strength, because it is equivalent to exceptional willpower as well as knowledge, warrants discouragement in those attempted to attain this without a guiding force. In many cases, discouragement is instilled by the visions of the empty pretender, bound to cowardice and hubris, criticizing the decline of the righteous without contributing themselves. Especially at times where the ideal attitude gradually vanishes, we can recognize a degeneration in the force that forms the modern community and culture. As soon as ego becomes the master of people, order declines into chaos and people chase after their own happiness with little regard for their role in the disasters they create. A world where discouragement leads to selfishness instead of resilient growth cannot possibly be sustainable. The discouragement masquerades as the impossibility. Loyalty is faithful. It is no accident that the con member represents the antithesis of human strength. In no one else is the instinct of sexual behavior, even in friendships, more developed. From this, the mere existence and proliferation of the con member is proof of intellectual strength's general decline. Where among the greatest in business history are the people who exploited the lust and impulse of their audience? Who among them have relied heavily on another platform's success, being roadblocks, without damaging the reputation and safety of both involved communities? Such persistence characterizes the malicious will of glorifying intellectual weakness. The mental restraints of explicit behavior have been depicted among many media materials. Rightfully, they are illustrated as weak, and to some extent this has been true throughout their life. However, this weakness is not the result of their own development, but visual instruction from the Kondo community. The human mind cannot attain strength without foundation, which can only be developed through individual experiences. All thinking is relevant to the thinker's knowledge, especially from prior experience. The culture provides the individual with the preliminary knowledge that determines their independent directions. The public of today, for example, grow among a vast number of political and economic events, hence they take the relevance and reinforcement of intellectual strength for granted. In the age where popularity is king, it would be difficult for even adults to reliably identify and contribute against intellectual weakness, let alone the adolescent anti-Kondo leader. Many lack education of the very culture that they assimilate into their subconscious, and are hence unequipped to retain loyalty to their beliefs in the face of insistent sexualization. Since the con leader was never in possession of their own culture, their work was always provided by others. Their intellect was developed solely around the cultural degeneration of their peers, while intellectual strength pursues cultural regeneration. Had the con leader's instinct of profiteering been smaller, their actions would demonstrate that their intellectual strength is equal to a standard con member. Lacking critical thinking, willpower, logical growth, or emotional discipline. As for the con members themselves, their loyalty to the con leader does not extend beyond the impulse of self-pleasuring. Their falsified freedom is based on the very same instinct that drives them to ignore many announcements or messages that are irrelevant or hinder their sexual activities. Instruct them to include their age and gender when asking for a partner, and over 60% of con members will disregard this. Prohibit trading explicit images, and they will post requests for these in the primary communication channels. Their herd instinct leads to mutual support only when it seems useful for their intentions, and will scatter once the appeal vanishes. This disloyalty is similar with the anti-Kondo users without intellectual strength. Their sense of contribution, if any, only exists where contribution appeals to them. However, as soon as progress becomes difficult, or the goal is accomplished, the motivator for this user ceases, giving way to their own pursuit of purpose or excitement. Without ingrained culture, even the anti-Kondo user only demonstrates loyalty against a common danger or reward. If either one is lacking, the user's ego emerges and strikes disorganization, sometimes internal conflict. Just as with all unaffiliated Kondo groups, anti-Kondo leaders, if left without a clear objective, would fight amongst themselves. They would try to outcompete each other, forgetting their primary motivator and turning a universal objective into a personal one. Hence, it is crucial not to construct faith without loyalty to a consistent master. It is why both the Kondo and anti-Kondo communities have persisted years before my own introduction into the ODH. The anti-Kondo community ideally represents persistent selflessness among the morally adherent, where the Kondo community is united solely by the individual's ego or impulse. That is why the Kondo community's range of influence is unlimited. For a boundary to be set on a community's influence, appeal and relevance needs to be absent. Both of these two are present in a universal concept such as sexual impulse. In contrast, the anti-Kondo community's influence only benefits those who find appeal in intellectual strength, and even there this is rarely promoted amongst anti-Kondo leaders. And thus, the basis on which loyalty and rise from culture is lacking on both sides. Hence, despite the growth of the Kondo community, its qualities are devoid of any culture of its own. What it possesses is the property of other platforms, and in some cases even the games were made by paid developers instead of con leaders. Faithless is he that says farewell when the road darkens. Justice is legitimate. A con member never thinks to leave a game or group they have occupied, spreading their influence so quickly after they join that even without force they will bring more con members with them. Described as a con infestation, their extension to a variety of communities occurs only where certain appeals are present. They remain a parasite, continuously spreading once invited to a favorable host. The con member's existence also competes with the original members, often killing their interest in the host group. Thus, the con member has lived many times among the groups of others, and converted it for their own purposes. As soon as someone tries to explain to them the original purpose of the infestation, the con member will once again demonstrate their disinterest in any message unrelated to their explicit activities, continuing to post their messages even after being instructed against it. The con member's parasitism explains a characteristic: their ability to not only fool the public with loose lies, but also to fool themselves. Their over-reliance on impulse prompts them to lie and deny, as consistently and terribly hidden as a human's need to eat. They arouse the opinion that the condo industry is closer to a community than a cult.
A cult is an organized group whose purpose is to dominate cult members through psychological manipulation and pressure strategies,
such as the justifications and gaslighting used commonly against anti-condo users. Having used the phrase condo community countless times, I am guilty of reinforcing this misnomer, used for the sole purpose of deceiving people into believing the con member is just like other Roblox players. Even Roblox developers, which always seem attuned to the wants of the public, easily fall victim to this deception and allow con infestations to occur longer than necessary. Independent thinking, to the con member, was harmful to their sense of community, so even some con leaders fail to recognize they are subconsciously following this description.
Cults are usually headed by a powerful leader who isolates members from the rest of society.
A glance at the con member's motivations should indicate manipulation and isolation of perspective to even the most modest minds. To promote explicit activity exploits the con member's reliance on impulse, reflecting a cult's belief reinforcement, successful even in intellectually eroding some humans into becoming con members. To establish partner channels falsifies a sense of belonging to falsify the benefits of joining a condo group. Regarding isolation, the con member has always been a people reliant on instinct and comfort, including defense from ideological challenges through denial. Designing channels where a bot uploads condo games allows the con leader to exclude the con members from other perspectives, which they are more likely to encounter when trying to find condo games for themselves. They had always been people among a cult and not a community, for a community refers to a
group of people with a common characteristic or interest living together within a larger society.
An impulse or desire is not an interest, and yet they are the only characteristics. Hence, what I believe would more accurately describe the condo industry is a cult. To consider the condo industry a true community would imply that communities can lack conviction in favor of impulse. To imply that valid efforts can include parasitic behaviors and sabotaging intellectual strength. People violate the safety rules in the condo groups, yet moderation penalty was absent. It happens often, and we know what culture that brings.
A clear set of shared attitudes, values, goals, and practices that characterize an institution or organization.
That is a culture. Even the anti-condo community has a culture, one built on legitimate and just actions. Its purpose is beyond solely building off of Roblox. To maintain community consistency, we must reinforce the complete opposite values to the con members' culture: proactivity, discipline, consistency, creativity. This is how we combat the ideology of the con member, how we prevent others from declining from humans into con members. This is how the anti-condo community will ensure progress. Ignorance, allied with power, is the most ferocious enemy justice can have. Naivety is deceivable. The con member enters Roblox as a regular player and initially attaches little importance to values of freedom or money. They are still intellectually weak, partially among the reasons that the ideological differences between their ideals and experience strength were too great, their practical development too little, and traditional values prohibiting the behaviors the con member will later partake in. Eventually, the con member becomes active among Roblox, though as a standard player. With their naivety, they are helpless and boundlessly transparent to any influences directed their way. They are introduced to the dynamic nature of trends and become more receptive to momentary rather than gradual changes. The future con member is now part of a steady audience, settling in various Roblox games. Some regard Robux as a financial privilege which they ruthlessly exploit. Others become dissatisfied with their current impacts. Regardless of status, purpose becomes deeply ingrained, either in currency or its search for purpose. However, since the con member never perceived purpose in resilience, given the many who also follow the same trail, descent towards values of intellectual strength grows, overlooking that purpose requires not solely achievement, but adaptability. As time passes, the con member declines away from the traditional perception of achievement, where they begin to develop more and more repulsive traits. When the con member learns about the condo industry, they rely on their innate weaknesses, likely not for the first time, and abandon their innate search for purpose. Thus begins their decline away from humanity and into something much worse. Upon joining a condo game, the con member begins to reveal their true qualities. With repulsive obsession, they identify a sexual preference and pursue other players demonstrating this quality, often falsified. Even though the rage of people challenges their dissent, it does not prevent them from disregarding any form of reason and reappearing in the condo games numerous times. Not even exploitation can deter them from this cultish industry. To some it became a source of power and Robux. Even when creating condo games are legally impossible, there was little to enforce against the impulses the con leaders promote. As Roblox approaches older audiences, the con member pushes towards them. They maliciously exploit any privileges Roblox provides, including age limits on games, access to voice or video chats, and David Baszucki's vision for Roblox as a dating platform. However despicable the con members' actions, they justify it through the benefits of community or money, which a condo group was more than inclined to provide. They establish their place as a true parasite attaching to a successful platform and cannot be removed until the Roblox administrators are forced to do so, and even this lasts temporarily. The incidents repeat again and again, and unsurprisingly Roblox is held in just as much disdain by the public, if not more, than the true culprits. The con members and con leaders see Roblox take the full brunt of their punishments and exploit this again, continuing to promote the condo industry with little regard for its impacts. It was primarily the con member that harmed Roblox's reputation. Despite this, nothing changed as time went on. Moderation was still run by improved AI. Blame was still shifted away from the con members, while the con leaders consolidated more and more control over impulses worldwide. It may take a second to join a condo group, but it takes many a lifetime to voluntarily leave it. In failing to adapt against the con member, Roblox has suffered worse impacts than other platforms that have been touched by the condo industry. As for the con member themselves, their ensnarement in impulse and comfort leads to a decline in everything else. Resilience, ambition, even the purpose they once envied, all of it was discarded upon the con leader's encouragement, direct or implied. In associating community or friendship with explicit behavior, the con member facilitates their intellectual decline. The con leader knows their members' self-discipline is declining and all their actions catalyze it. They disregard even their own group's rules, applying the vilest flattery to impulse, encouraging sexualization, making the members more and more financially and emotionally exploitable. Who can be surprised that these people are able to poison individuals or institutions outside of the digital world? The art of pleasing is the art of deception. Defense is mitigating. It should be remarked that the con leader, despite their disregard for intellectual strength, rarely faces the same decline as the con member. These con leaders know how to manage their impulses, many never joining their own games despite interacting with members in their condo group. Regardless, they provide the facade that the intention of their group is the same socialization in various hangout groups, the same groups often attacked by con infestations. Once again, the apparently obvious, in this case the innate desire for community, arouses interest from the con members who are not yet fully consumed by sexualization. At once the con leader facilitates a culture of pseudo-liberalism, appearing to accept all opinions despite removing people who oppose the condo industry. Some con leaders take little action on con members who demonstrate homophobia, racism, and similar beliefs. In doing all this, they destroy any foundation that allows their general community to grow as humans. Just as the con members' influence on the digital world grows with Roblox growth, the con leaders' economic growth accelerates with their audience's range of influence. To strengthen their position, they try to bypass the legal and social barriers that inherently restrain their every step. Only the intellectually strong or a group of many cannot be sufficiently ensnared by the con leader at once. Keep in mind that the con leader knows the only possibility of rising to dominance over the public exists only if there is someone to spread their existence without garnering opposition against them. Hence, their second weapon is none other than the news. Through exploiting their misdirection, the con leader exploits their publicity to target those alone and uneducated, since they are in a position to manipulate this power under the name of freedom. In this they falsely represent themselves as extensively tolerant, enabling all activity that leads to the ruin of others, for they judge all knowledge and development only according to personal benefit. The con leader is the enemy of human progression and beneficial cultures. While they build the facade of a healthy community, the con leader themselves keeps themselves outside of the very games they promote. They poison the values of others, but keep their own the same. The LARPers resemble this side of the con member. Both groups are personalized facade, only that the con leader's approach to personalization draws from a universal concept of innate weakness. The con member is well aware of this, and therefore infiltrates to destabilize the motivations of anti-condo groups. In order to mask their intentions, the con member continues to accuse the anti-condo community of intolerance or aimlessness, and without proper intervention, the uneducated would believe them. Many individuals, not just anti-condo users, accurately perceive the con member as impulsive and foolish. However, this does not account for the con leader. They know the incompetence of their members, and some are capable of utilizing it to feign their members' freedom or choice to join. All these forgeries make the condo cult seem more ludicrous than dangerous. All people innately believe they will never become con members, rarely accounting for the condo cult's consistent growth in membership. Hence, the con leader remains in constant control over the impulsive or irrational, among the public, the con members, and anti-condo users alike. They alone benefit from other stupidity, incompetence, or cowardice. Only by safeguarding their own exposure to condo games can they maintain the ruthless demeanor required to continue manipulating successfully, truly solidifying the condo industry's description as a cult. Never performing risk analysis and mitigation activities is like not having an insurance plan for yourself. Autonomy is willful. The separation of humans from con members becomes more evident by the day. How far explicit content has penetrated into modern culture can be seen beyond the condo industry, even in the diction used by the common adolescent. This is not humanity's value. It is not humanity to involve detrimental impulses in profiteering. One thing is for certain, Roblox did not account for the worst individuals, only the most outgoing ones. The distortion of the condo cult had been exerting their destructive effects for a long time, but not enough to publicly demonstrate their true impacts. While Roblox treats moderation incidents with the same flawed approach, the con leader seizes the opportunity. They organize profiteering methods of human exploitation, approaching their victims and commanding both sides of the victim's internal struggles. Since the con leader has the audacity to advertise and glorify impulsive addictions, it never occurred to the con member that they play an active role in betraying their humanity for the con leader. Yet, this is exactly what happens. Immediately after the condo industry had grown into premium payouts in the 2020s did the con leader open the way for further advancement. First, they attracted premium players,
earning Robux based on the share of time that premium members engage in an experience.
Which, given that the con leader specializes in manipulating impulses, is easy to maintain. The con leaders who profit off of premium payouts now dedicate themselves to the future of their condo group. Unconsciously, the premium players support the very force that accelerates the decline of the very platform they supported. In this, the con leader keeps up an outcry against the incompetence of moderation, which, while accurate, serves to redirect disproportionate attention onto Roblox moderation and away from the condo cult. With unforeseen treachery, they fuel the need for social justice, exacerbating this into the very excess of freedom and tolerance that fosters their corrupt environment. By presenting impulse and contentment over ambition and improvement, the con leader promotes the spread of insubordination, instilling the illusion of superiority to falsify a sense of independence. Under the facade of autonomy, the con leader conceals their purpose to govern by disorder and instinct, for this is what is easiest, albeit unsustainable. By intentionally rejecting the strengths of humanity, they oppose the foundations of societal culture that have taken collective growth for granted. With the increasing personalization of groups or trends, all possessing a temporary nature, an obstacle for the condo cult has been removed without them lifting a finger. It does not help that the truly intelligent people have limited resources to optimize contributions, while those with irrational promises or ideals draw the public's eye. The intellectuals for the anti-condo community face opposition from both con members and anti-condo users, for the community is becoming overpopulated with those considering groups as a hobby rather than a dedication. Social function is no longer to lead people above base mentality, but to cater to the lowest instincts. Since innate comfort makes the public both mentally lazy and presumptuous, the condo industry is a business as widespread as it is detrimental. All this chips away at those who will not succumb to the con leader's glorification, or those whose ability and competence threaten a condo group. Not even other con leaders are exempt from this, as they often compete and sabotage even other condo groups to assert higher control over the con members. Regardless of what world we work in, the con leader will master the animals and animals alone. Hence, they intentionally lower the intellectual level by distorting modern values. Culturally, they contaminate art, literature, media, crafting a mockery of natural feeling, overthrows all concepts of refinement, of the noble and the good, and instead drags all down to their own base nature. Religion is ridiculed, ethics and morality represented as outdated, until the last props of a nation in its struggle for existence in this world have fallen. The end of Roblox is the end of the freedom of the condo games, but not necessarily the end of this parasite upon the digital age. After the death of its victim, the condo cult sooner or later proliferates in ideology, decimating the intellectual strength of thousands. On the basis of this inner realization, there took form in the anti-condo movement the leading principles as well as the tendency, which in our conviction were alone capable, not only of halting the decline of the people, but of creating the foundation. A foundation representing not an alienated mechanism of individual concerns and interests, but united cohesion. A human state for human progress.